Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines. We got ProCoin news on Ripple. We got gas fees again, ladies and gentlemen. Brad Garlinghouse and a fantastic interview. We're going to talk about more central banks on the Ripple private ledger, 20 trillion in crypto market cap, and mass adoption in non-G20 markets, and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at Dig Perspectives at the top of the screen. Everything that we're talking about here today, $1.807 trillion market cap. Happy Sunday. It is May 1st, 2022. Good morning, everybody. And looking right here, Bitcoin right now, 38,000 plus, almost 38,000 flat. Ethereum, 2,700 plus. We see the number 7 spot for XRP is 59 cents this morning. Let's talk about that. I told you we had a lot to talk about this morning. Well, this is one of them. 59 cents. Well, I can tell you, I'm starting to feel like Daffy Duck up in here. Mine, all mine. You know what I mean? I'm just going to throw the kitchen sink at this thing if it hits 55 cents. I don't know what to tell you. And I may break down and at 58, 57 cents, just do it anyway. You know, me and Mrs. Backup will just work it out afterwards. Let's take a look at the price range. And it's not financial advice. I'm just sharing my digital perspectives. It's hard to have the dry powder in moments like these. And then I start looking around. This is just me personally. I'm not telling anybody what to do. But I start looking around and going, hey, what can I sell? I got something I could sell. I'm doing something. When prices are like this, I'm doing something. Ranging right now between 58 cents and 63 cents. If it gets this close, I'm telling you, I'm just hoping we go ahead and touch the 55 cent, 50 cent range. Now, I will say this very quickly. Do remember this. Dark Defender, Coins Kid, at the very least, technical analysts we look to on this channel to see where we are for macro outlook have told us that this moment could be right here, and it is upon us. So keep that in mind, and they are still bullish on where we're going. Not financial advice. Take a listen to this, because this is Joe Endoso from Link2, where you can get Ripple private equity underneath the video on the link. But I tell you, I want you to hear what he says and what he sees happening right now in this space. It's a 1-minute clip. Take a listen.
It's quite incredible how RippleNet and ODL usage had exploded during a period of time when crypto trading volumes on global exchanges as well as trading volume on NASDAQ were down. So they were running counter to the trend in financial transaction activity. And I think that's a tremendous tribute when you sit back and look at the context in which that was happening. This is a company that's being actively sued by the US SEC, and yet they managed 100% increase in the number of transactions on RippleNet and a 765% increase in the volume of ODL used in those transactions. Right? What does that tell you those numbers might be once the SEC action is resolved? And market adoption in the US particularly is no longer chilled by this regulatory thing. It's the reason why we're bullish on Ripple.
I'll tell you something. Every time I listen to that man, my IQ goes up. Credit score too. It's unbelievable. He's so smart and he's so articulate the way he can communicate his thoughts and perspective on what he's saying. I just don't know if it gets any better. Again, if you're accredited and want to get Ripple linked to, it's underneath the video. And if you're not, go sign up, because you can sign up and register with Link2 for free and get incredible amounts of information on all the companies in this space. Right here, Ripple website confirms XRP will be used for all cross-border payments, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, shout out to ProCoin News. Again, if you're not following them, I would be. They're amazing. Take a look at this. Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin, dollars. right? Look at this. Digital dollars represented at XRP sitting right there. You know, and then it goes on. If you click on this as well, it even shows you central bank digital currencies. And we're about to hear from Brad Garlinghouse is going to confirm that as well. More central banks on the pipeline here, ladies and gentlemen. Something's coming, and it's going to be big when it does. Take a look at this, though, because this is the current state of the market while Ripple's focused on where the puck is going instead of where it currently is. And this is where the puck currently is. And this is not a solution for the future of digital assets. At $81 a transaction on Ethereum, I do want to see everything win. I know that I sound like a maxi that I'm pointing this out. Or do I sound like a realist, an investor who's going, why would I invest in that? At some point, if Ethereum cannot solve those gas fees issues, I tell you, I see real problems on the horizon. But then again, it's just like XRP Crypto Wolf says here, I never understood why people put up with paying insanely high ETH gas fees. At what point do we switch to a completely different chain like the XRP Ledger where fees are low and can actually handle high traffic without shutting down? You know, it is one of those simple questions that I believe I've been asking myself and all of you for quite some time. There's going to be a day where this is very much realized on a mass level. And then the market, the free market, once XRP and Ripple are freed from this case, will certainly show the world just how possible it all is to bring it together with hardly any fees. Now, taking a look at this here, this is a really good interview conducted by White Crypto. I want to bring you in right here at the 30-second mark, and I want to play you this first thing that he talks about here, where he talks about, actually, I don't want to play that. It's the whole interview is great, but I want to focus on the heavier clips here because I don't want the video to get too long. And then I want to kind of run down and see what we got here. So maybe I can squeeze this in. All right, so we're not too far into this game. So let's go ahead and let this clip run. Check it out.
I was first introduced to Bitcoin in around 2012, 2013, and first bought some Bitcoin in 2012, 2013. I was always excited about the promise of what the digitization and the programmability of money could represent. I was always a little bit nervous in the early days about if all of the crypto ecosystem was trying to compete with governments or circumvent governments or compete with banks and circumvent banks. I always thought that was not necessarily the path to having the optimal outcome. And when I first heard about Ripple, Ripple was taking an approach of, hey, how do we bridge between the crypto world and the traditional world? And really what we've spent the last, I've been in the company 7 years, and we spent that time doing is, to some degree, building those bridges. And I almost think about it as interoperability between the legacy infrastructure and a much more modern, much faster, next generation set of technologies ranging from Bitcoin to XRP. I believe very much in a multi-chain world.
And there you have it. And, you know, that lays it down right there, how he got to where he is and why he believes what he believes. He goes on to talk about in here, just to move through this quickly, Ripple's invested $500 million in the space. And listen to what he says about how big this crypto market cap can be not too many years from now. Take a listen.
I for years have been advocating, like, look, you know, I see people throwing stones, and I just think we could all, one player doesn't have to fail for another player to succeed, and it's going to be a very big market. It's going to continue to grow. If it's, what, 2 trillion today, I'm very optimistic it'll be 20 trillion in not that many years.
20 trillion in not that many years. How about that one? He goes on to talk about how he's gotten to a place where people ask him about startups they're working on, and he advises them to really take it outside of the United States because there's no clarity here. And rightfully so. I mean, he's obviously been harmed through this whole trying to be transparent process. Now I want to take you to this section where he actually mentions the SEC and how preposterous this lawsuit is. Take a listen.
Like Switzerland and the UK and the United Arab Emirates, Singapore, Japan, you know, they all have provided certainty and clarity. And it's
and very quickly here, not to interrupt to this, but everyone needs to understand this too. Joe Indoso made this point the other day, that it's not just the clarity in those regions that he just mentioned. It's also really the tacit approval from the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central banks, that would never allow this all to be taking place for XRP to have clarity for cross-border payments, because the BIS is really the say and, be all end all when it comes to saying whether they allow any of this to be even taking place at that level with XRP to be involved. If there was a problem, the BIS would have said it a long time ago. That is a very, very huge signal beyond the sovereign clarity.
It's not even critical exactly what that looks like. What it's critical is that the investors and entrepreneurs know what the rules of the road are. There are, the vast majority of people building capabilities and participating in the crypto markets are good actors, and they want to follow the rules and the laws. But when they're not clear, as is the case here in the United States, Ripple and I personally went in 3 or 4, maybe 4 or 5 times to the SEC, met with commissioners, met with the chairman, met with staff, and for years was very transparent about what we're doing. For them years later to come back and say, we think XRP is a security, you should have known that the whole time, feels a little preposterous.
It sure does. Well said, Brad. And here I'm going to take you to the real point where he talks about central bank digital currencies and the Ripple private ledger. And there's more central banks than just the ones we know of. Take a listen.
Yeah. And as well, some countries plan to launch their central bank digital currencies. China already has a successful launch of digital yuan. So how do you see the existence of both cryptocurrency and central bank digital currencies?
Well, typically, the way Ripple looks at this is Ripple's really trying to solve that cross-border payments problem. Central bank digital currencies are domestic by nature. They're issued by a central bank or potentially issued by a central bank. So they're not really solving cross-border problems, they're solving domestic solutions more often than not. So look, I think that what we're seeing happen with stablecoins, we're seeing happen with central bank issued digital assets, I think is exciting. I'm not exactly clear how it's all going to play out. You're seeing countries experiment and test. Ripple has partnered with several central banks around the world. Some we've announced, some we haven't yet announced, that they're issuing and testing using the XRP ledger to issue their digital assets on the XRP ledger as a token. So we're excited to be working with them. And look, at our core, Ripple's really good at working with enterprise customers. A government is just a big enterprise customer. We know how to sell to.
That's an interesting notion.
In some ways, it's just a really big enterprise customer, and we're pretty good at that now because we've had a lot of experience with it and worked with some of the largest banks in the world, as well as a lot of the smaller payment companies that have grown very quickly using our technology. It's helped them grow more quickly.
So they've gotten really good at it because they've been doing it a lot. That's what he's saying. You don't get good at something unless you do it a lot. That much I'm pretty sure of. That is really, really nice to get that. Now, listen to this, because I thought this was quite an interesting little sound clip too, because this is where he talks about mass adoption in non-G20 markets. And remember, where these markets are not as liquid, right? Because the dollar's not strong, or the government has problem propping up the dollar and the finance and the economy and all of these things. So take a listen very quick at this clip here.
Your opinion, what is needed for the mass adoption of crypto?
Well, look, it's an interesting question, because I'd start by saying I think over 50 million people in the United States are already have crypto exposure one way or another. And so that's kind of mass adoption. That's a lot of people. Now, do I think that is, I think a lot more people will be participating in the crypto markets in 5 more years. So I think things like NFTs have opened up exposure to new customer segments. I also think a lot of this will be in non-G20 markets where you don't have strong currencies like the dollar or euro or yen or pound. And if you are, I'll pick on the Zimbabwe dollar, this is a currency that the central government has kind of lost control of a couple of times in history. And I think you may see that digital assets enter consumer use cases more prevalently or more actively in markets where you don't have strong domestic currency.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a second. That is a powerful statement right there. And now I want to take us to the last clip that I want you to hear here, right here, where he talks about Ripple and compares it, makes it analogous to Amazon. Listen to what he says here. It's extremely important. We're at a pivot point for Ripple and what their goal is, which was originally just to have cross-border payments. It is going beyond that at this point now. Take a listen.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And can you share some plans for the development of Ripple? Any
Sure.
new exciting partnerships?
Sure. Maybe if you don't mind, last question, I'll touch on this and then we'll wrap up. But look, I think for Ripple, one of the things I have talked about a little bit publicly is that I was exposed, very fortunately, to Amazon in the very earliest days. I met with Jeff Bezos in 1996. And at the time it was called Amazon Books. And Amazon was a bookseller, and they competed just with books. In some ways, I think about what Amazon was to books as Ripple is to cross-border payments. Mm-hmm. Blockchain technologies can solve and reduce friction of transactions in lots of industries and lots of use cases. Ripple started with cross-border transactions because we felt like the correspondent bank could be disintermediated and improve speed, improve cost, and reduce errors. But there's a lot of other examples like that, and we certainly think there's other vertical industries we'll go after. We've talked a little bit publicly about some things we're doing with the carbon credit marketplaces as one example, but there's some other things that we'll continue to work on to go beyond just books.
Carbon credit marketplaces. I remind everybody of Zange or Zang.com, right? Working with the United Nations, doing the first securities exchange in Africa to issue carbon credits off of the XRP ledger. That's just one thing. How about NFTs and the recent development of the XLS-20 token that allows NFT marketplace on the XRP ledger, which is going to really explode over the next several years as developers realize how easily they can develop and launch off of that network and how cost efficient, scalable, and secure it is too. That's going to do it for me. Well, wait a minute. Before I get out of here, I do want to run through this because I want you to see this. This is a thread from Linda P. Jones here, and it is a great overview of the clips that we just watched. And I felt so strongly about this that I wanted to touch and share what she had and her opinion as well on this. She said she loved listening to Brad Garlinghouse because there are always nuggets of gold in what he says, and there sure are. She says, I'm writing highlights from this interview at the Crypto Bahamas conference, and in parentheses is when she's quoting him, but she's loosely quoting him through most of this. Direct quotes will use quotation marks. First, he said in his early interest in crypto was to answer how do we bridge between crypto world and traditional world rather than compete or circumvent banks and governments. Absolutely. It was about interoperability, providing cross-border payments between legacy infrastructure in a future multi-chain world. Asked about stablecoin CBDCs, he said CBDCs issued or potentially issued by a central bank, so they're not solving cross-border problems. He's talked about the fact they're solving domestic solutions. He said stablecoins and CBDCs are exciting, and he's not sure how it all going to play out. Parentheses, this says here, I think he does, but it is classified. And I agree with that. That's exactly what's going on. And he even lent to that statement by saying some we have yet to announce. We're talking about other central banks that are actually already developing on the Ripple private ledger for CBDCs. It says here, countries and experiments and tests. This is one reason we have a private ledger so they can run parallel. Exactly. Ripple has partnered with several central banks around the world. Some we have yet to announce. They are testing issuing their assets on the XRP ledger. Regulators are looking at stable coins. There won't be one solution to rule them all. There will be solutions that cooperate with each other, like XRP, XLM, and integrate with each other, like the SDR, maybe. Crypto will be in a non-G20 markets where you don't have strong currencies like the dollar, euro, yen, or pound. You may see digital assets enter consumer use cases more prevalently where you don't have a strong domestic currency. So use XLM for the consumer and XRP for the central banks and governments, right? I think that is right. And it says here, Brad compared Ripple to Amazon. What Amazon was to books is cross-border to payments. As Amazon expanded into other things, so will Ripple. One example is the carbon credit marketplace, like I talked about a second ago. And there are other things we'll work on, like NFTs. when we're asked about investments, Brad candidly said 90% of his personal net worth is in crypto. And I have to say thank you to him as well. It is really great, and that's a great thread. You know, I think the overview here is that there is so much more that we're not aware of that is about to roll out. And I just go back to highlight this one thing before we wrap. And it really is this. In just a few years, not too many years from now, Brad Garlinghouse is excited to see a $20 trillion crypto market, for which is 1.8 trillion today. That is something to wait for. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. Make sure you check out all the links underneath the video. They are great products and services I use each and every day. They're great specials and deals in those links, but you got to click on the links to get them. I'll catch all of you on the next one.